The sky wasn't blue. It was the color of a fresh bruise. Purple clouds swirled violently above the scorched earth. Lightning crackled. Not natural lightning. This was mana discharge, the residual energy of 1,000 spells colliding in the atmosphere. Below the chaotic sky lay the battlefield. It was a meat grinder. Armored knights clashed with chitinous horrors. Blood soaked into the mud. It didn't matter whose blood it was. Red, green, black. It all mixed together in the dirt. This was the reality of the realm of Athelgard, a world locked in a perpetual stalemate between the Alliance of Light and the Abyssal Legions. It was grim, it was dark, and quite frankly, it was exhausting to look at. The camera pans away from the carnage. It moves past the smoking craters, past the screams of the dying. It settles on a small, dilapidated shack. It sat precariously on the edge of the jagged cliffs known as the Gray Zone, the neutral borderlands, a place where angels feared to tread and demons usually got jumped for their loot. Inside the shack there was no screaming. There was only the rhythmic chopping of a knife against a wooden board. Thwack, thwack, thwack. Theo sighed. He looked down at his hands. They were rough, calloused. Not the hands of the executive chef he used to be. In his previous life, he commanded a kitchen in downtown Tokyo. He had stars. He had respect. Then he had a heart attack during the dinner rush. Classic, overworked, underappreciated. He died plating a truffle risotto. He woke up here, no goddess, no cheat skill that let him one-shot dragons, just a new body and a stat window that was honestly insulting. He stared at the floating blue interface in front of his face. Name: Theo class, Villager, level 1. Strength: 3, Magic, 2, Luck, 5, Unique skill, Mana-infused culinary arts. Villager, he muttered. The word tasted like ash. I got reincarnated into a Grimdark Fantasy war just to be an NPC. The universe has a twisted sense of humor. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't the chosen one. He was fodder. If a goblin sneezed in his direction, he would probably explode. But he wasn't dead yet. He grabbed a handful of herbs. They looked like weeds. They smelled like sulfur. This was starleaf, a common plant in the borderlands. Most people stepped on it. Theo smelled potential. He tossed the herbs into a bubbling pot. The liquid inside was thick. Green. Viscous. It was made from the remains of a slime he had trapped earlier. In this world, monsters didn't vanish when they died. They left corpses, messy, stinking corpses. The heroes took the magic stones. They took the rare drops. They left the meat. They left the bones. To them, it was trash. To a chef with a zero-budget kitchen, it was free inventory. Theo stirred the pot. He focused. This was the only thing he had, his unique skill. He couldn't cast a fireball. He couldn't heal a wound with a touch, but he could see the mana lines inside ingredients. He could see the flow of energy in the meat. He watched the steam rise. It shifted from gray to a soft gold. Okay, he thought. Let's see if this works, or if I just brewed poison. He needed money. He needed a safe zone. The system didn't give him a tutorial. It just dropped him in a war zone with a ladle. He had spent the last week scavenging. He built this shack from the debris of a destroyed watchtower. He found a rusty stove. He cleaned it. He fixed it. He made it his altar. The door creaked. The wind howled outside, carrying the scent of ozone and rotting flesh. Theo didn't look up. He kept stirring. "We're not open yet," he called out. His voice was steady. He was bluffing. He was terrified. If a high-level monster walked in, he was dead. If a bandit walked in, he was dead. The figure in the doorway hesitated. It wasn't a human. It was short, maybe 4 feet tall. Its skin was a deep crimson. Small horns protruded from its forehead. It wore tattered leather armor. A scout. A low-level demon from the Abyssal Legions. An imp. Theo froze. His heart hammered against his ribs. This was it. Game over. Spawn killed in the first chapter. But the imp didn't attack. It sniffed. Its nose twitched. The creature's eyes were wide, yellow, bloodshot. It wasn't looking at Theo with bloodlust. It was looking at the pot. It clutched its stomach. A loud growl echoed through the shack. The sound broke the tension. It was the universal language of hunger. Theo blinked. He recognized that look. He had seen it on customers who had waited an hour for a table. He had seen it on staff members after a double shift. "You hungry?" Theo asked. The imp flinched. It reached for a jagged dagger at its waist. Theo raised the ladle. "Put that away. No weapons in the kitchen. Health and safety regulations." The imp looked confused. It looked at the ladle. It looked at the pot. The smell was overpowering. It was rich, savory. It smelled like home. It smelled like safety. The demon slowly let go of the dagger. It took a step forward. It hissed a single word. "Food," Theo smirked. It was a wry, crooked smile. He wasn't a warrior. He was a feeder. "Sit," Theo commanded. He pointed to a wobbly wooden stool. "It's the chef's special. Spicy slime stew with starleaf garnish. Don't ask about the hygiene rating." The demon sat. It was trembling, not from fear, from exhaustion. The war took a toll on everyone, even the monsters. The hierarchy of the demon army was brutal. The weak starved while the strong feasted on human souls. This scout probably hadn't eaten in days. Theo scooped a generous portion into a cracked clay bowl. He watched the liquid settle. The gold steam swirled. He felt a drain on his stamina. That was the cost. He wasn't just cooking with heat. He was cooking with his own latent mana. He was infusing his intent into the dish. "Calm down," he thought. Just eat." He placed the bowl in front of the demon. The imp didn't wait for a spoon. It grabbed the bowl with both hands. It chugged. Theo watched closely. He analyzed the reaction. The hot liquid hit the demon's throat. The creature stiffened. Its eyes widened. Usually, monster meat was toxic to other monsters. The conflicting mana types caused backlash. That was the rule of this world. You don't eat your own kind's leftovers. But Theo had cooked the toxicity out. He had realigned the mana structures. He had turned poison into protein. The imp slammed the empty bowl down. It let out a breath. A puff of golden mist escaped its lips. The trembling stopped. The cuts on its arms, small scratches from thorny vines, began to knit together. "Good," the imp grunted. Its voice was raspy. "Warm." Theo leaned against the counter. He crossed his arms. "That'll be 3 copper coins, or whatever currency you guys use. I accept loot drops." The imp rummaged in a pouch. It pulled out a handful of jagged metal shards. Scrap iron. Useful. Theo nodded. Deal. This was his plan. The neutral zone was dangerous because nobody controlled it, but that also meant nobody regulated it. The humans wouldn't feed a demon. The demons wouldn't feed a human. Theo would feed anyone who paid. He was Switzerland, but with better soup. "So," Theo said, wiping the counter. "Rough day at the office?" The imp looked at him. It didn't understand the idiom. "Commander, angry, sent me to scout. Heroes nearby." Theo paused. "Heroes?" The imp nodded. Fear crept back into its eyes. "Gold armor, big swords. They kill everything." The atmosphere in the shack shifted. The warmth of the soup vanished. "Heroes," Theo muttered. "Great. The good guys. The ones with the main character syndrome and the god complexes." In this world, heroes weren't noble defenders. They were celebrities. They were sponsored by kingdoms. They farmed kills for prestige. They destroyed villages just to get to a boss monster. They were reckless, arrogant, and dangerous. A heavy thud shook the door. The imp jumped. It scrambled under the table. It curled into a ball. The door didn't just open. It exploded inward. Splinters flew across the room. Theo didn't flinch. He just sighed. "I just fixed that hinge." 3 figures stepped into the dust. The leader was tall, blonde hair, blue eyes, polished golden armor that gleamed despite the gloom outside. He held a massive broadsword resting casually on his shoulder. He radiated light. It was blinding. It was annoying. Behind him stood a mage in silk robes and a rogue twirling a dagger. The classic party composition. Basic. The leader scanned the room. He sneered. "Smells like garbage in here." "It's called reduction," Theo said dryly. "Can I help you? Or do you usually enter establishments by destroying the architecture?" The hero laughed. It wasn't a nice laugh. It was the laugh of someone who had never been told no in his life. "Watch your tone, peasant," the mage snapped. Sparks danced around her fingers. "You are in the presence of Sir Auric of the Dawn, the slayer of the Northern Wyvern." "Cool," Theo said. He picked up a rag. "Menu is on the wall. We have slime stew. That's it." Sir Auric stepped forward. His metal boots clanked loudly on the wooden floor. He looked around with disdain. "We tracked a demonic signature to this location. A scout." "Where is it?" Theo didn't look at the table. He kept eye contact with the hero. "I don't see any demons, just a very rude customer breaking my door." The rogue sniffed the air. "I smell brimstone, Auric, and something else." "Food?" The rogue walked past Auric. He approached the pot. He dipped a finger in the leftover stew. He tasted it. "It's decent," the rogue admitted. He looked surprised. "Actually, it's really good." "Buff stamina recovery." Auric frowned. "Don't eat that slop. It's peasant food." The imp under the table shifted. A floorboard creaked. Silence. The three heroes froze. Their heads snapped toward the noise. Auric grinned. It was a predatory smile. "Found you." He didn't hesitate. He swung the massive sword. The table shattered. Wood exploded. The imp scrambled backward. It hit the wall. It was cornered. It held up its small, clawed hands in defense. "Please," the imp squealed. "Die, spawn of darkness," Auric shouted. He raised the sword for a finishing blow. He was enjoying this. It was just a level 5 imp. Easy XP. "Hey!" Theo shouted. He slammed his hand on the counter. "No fighting in the dining area." Auric stopped. He looked at Theo like he was a bug. "You dare interrupt me, NPC. You're harboring a monster. That makes you a traitor to humanity." "He's a paying customer," Theo shot back, "and you owe me for a door and a table." "I'll pay you with your life," Auric said. He turned back to the imp. The imp looked at Theo. It saw the chef standing there, powerless. A level 1 villager against a level 50 hero. But the chef had fed him. The chef had given him warmth. The stew bubbled in the imp's stomach. The mana Theo had infused into the food began to react. It wasn't just stamina recovery. Theo's culinary arts didn't just cook food. It unlocked potential. It optimized the biological functions of the eater. The imp felt a heat in its chest, a burning sensation. It wasn't painful. It was exhilarating. Strength, the system whispered to the demon, evolution pending. Auric swung the sword down. The imp didn't dodge. It raised its hand. Clang. The sound rang out like a bell. Auric's eyes widened. The rogue dropped his jaw. The imp had caught the blade. With one hand, the demon's skin began to darken. Its muscles swelled. The tattered leather armor ripped as its frame expanded. The small horns on its head grew, curling back like a ram's. A dark aura exploded outward, knocking the furniture back. Theo watched, stunned. Oh. He checked the system window hovering over the imp. Name: Imp Scout. Right arrow evolving. New class: Lesser Demon Warrior. Status: Empowered by Chef's Special. Buff: Su 200% strength, 100% agility for 10 minutes. "What did you feed it?" the mage screamed. She started chanting a spell. Fire formed in her hands. The imp roared. It wasn't the squeal of a scout anymore. It was a guttural bellow. It shoved Arik back. The hero stumbled, his heavy armor clattering. The demon didn't attack the heroes. It looked at Theo. It nodded once, a gesture of respect. Then it turned and smashed through the back wall of the shack, leaping off the cliff and into the abyss below to escape. The shack fell silent. Dust settled. There was a hole in the front, a hole in the back, a shattered table. Theo stood alone with 3 very angry, very confused heroes. Arik straightened his armor. His face was red. His ego was bruised. He pointed his sword at Theo's throat. The tip of the blade hovered inches from Theo's jugular. "Explain," Arik hissed. "Now." Theo looked at the sword. Then he looked at his pot of stew. His internal monologue kicked in. "Okay, so my cooking turns low-level trash mobs into elite warriors. That's problematic. Also kind of cool, but mostly problematic because this guy is about to decapitate me." Theo raised his hand slowly. He put on his best customer service smile. It was fake. It was strained. "Would you like to see the dessert menu?" The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife or a broadsword. This was his life now. He wasn't just a chef. He was a buffer, a power-up dispenser in a world obsessed with power. The war was about to get a lot more complicated and a lot more flavorful. Theo looked into the camera, the invisible fourth wall. "I think I'm going to need a bigger kitchen," he thought, "and maybe some liability insurance." The screen fades to black as the sound of the mage charging a fireball crackles in the background. The rain in the gray zone didn't wash things clean, it just made the blood slippery. 3 weeks had passed since Theo opened his doors. The shack wasn't just a shack anymore, it was a legend. A whispered secret in the trenches of the Abyssal Army. To the humans, this place was a pile of debris on a suicide cliff. To the demons, it was the only place in Ethelgard where they weren't treated like XP fodder. Theo stood behind the counter. He wiped a glass with a rag that was definitely cleaner than his conscience. The air inside was thick. It smelled of sulfur and searing meat. Not just any meat. Void boar flank. A rank B ingredient. Highly illegal, highly delicious. The system window pinged in his peripheral vision. Skill proficiency increased. Abyssal butchery, level 4. Reputation with the underworld friendly. Reputation with humanity, suspicious. Great, Theo thought. I'm popular with the monsters and suspicious to my own species. My mother would be so proud. He looked out over the dining floor. It was packed. Not with people. With nightmares. A group of orc berserkers huddled in the corner. They were quietly sipping bone broth. Their massive axes leaned against the wall. They looked like tired construction workers after a 12-hour shift. At the bar sat a harpy. Her wings were bandaged. She picked at a plate of stir-fried shadow mushrooms. They weren't rampaging. They weren't screaming for blood. They were eating. The narrative of this world was simple. Demons are evil. Humans are good. Theo flipped a steak on the grill. The fat rendered with a sharp hiss. Lies, he muttered. They're just hungry. In this world, demonic energy was like a cancer. It corroded the body. The more a demon fought, the more their own power ate them alive. It was a flawed biological system, a design error by the gods. But Theo found the patch. His cooking didn't just fill stomachs. It stabilized mana. He was acting as a dialysis machine for the armies of hell, and he was charging them premium prices for it. The door chimes didn't ring. They rattled. The conversation in the room died. Instantly. The orc stopped chewing. The harpy froze, her fork halfway to her beak. The air pressure dropped. It felt like gravity had just doubled. Theo felt it too. A cold sweat broke on the back of his neck. His instincts screamed. Danger. High-level threat. A man stepped inside. He looked human. Too human. He wore a long, dark coat that seemed to absorb the dim light of the lanterns. His hair was silver, tied back loosely. His eyes were black. No sclera. Just infinite, abyssal black. He didn't walk, he glided. The floorboards didn't creak under his boots. Every demon in the room lowered their head. They didn't dare look at him. They were trembling. Theo gripped his knife. He kept his face neutral. The poker face skill he learned from dealing with health inspectors in Tokyo was finally paying off. The stranger walked to the bar. He sat down. He placed a single gold coin on the counter. It was heavy. Ancient. The face on the coin wasn't a human king. It was a horned skull. "I hear," the stranger said. His voice was smooth, like velvet dragged over gravel. "That there is a human who feeds the wicked." Theo looked at the coin, then at the stranger. "I feed the hungry," Theo corrected. "Wickedness is a dietary choice. I just serve the carbs." The stranger smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "Clever, but dangerous. You play a dangerous game, little chef. Walking the line between two fires usually ends with getting burned." Theo leaned forward. "You ordering? Or are you just here to critique my business model?" The room gasped. The orcs looked terrified. "You don't talk to him like that." The stranger chuckled. The sound made the glass on the counter crack. "Feed me," the stranger said. "Something nostalgic. Something that tastes like a memory I've forgotten." New quest, the king's palate. Difficulty, impossible. Customer identity, Belial, the third demon king. Reward, survival. Failure, penalty, immediate death. Theo stared at the blue box. Demon King. One of the 7 catastrophes. A being that could level a city by snapping his fingers. And he wanted nostalgia. Right, Theo thought, his heart rate spiking to 180. No pressure. Just cooking for the guy who probably invented murder. Theo turned to his station. He needed to think. Nostalgia. For a demon king. What does a 5,000-year-old immortal miss? He looked at his ingredients. Void boar, shadow mushrooms, starleaf, trash. All of it. Common drops. He needed something deeper. He opened his inventory. There, hidden in the back. Heart of a magma golem, dormant. Crystallized moon dew. Spices from the fallen era. He had scavenged these from a high-level dungeon debris field yesterday. Heh, he was saving them for a rainy day. Well, Theo grabbed the magma heart. It burned his skin. It's pouring outside. He ignited the stove. He didn't use wood. He channeled his mana. The fire turned blue. He placed the magma heart on the cutting board. It was rock hard. Theo closed his eyes. Flashback. Tokyo. The old master he trained under. Cooking is not about force, Theo. It is about understanding the grain. Everything has a weak point, even a stone. Theo opened his eyes. His pupils dilated. He saw the mana lines, the microscopic fractures in the golem's heart. He raised his knife. Slash. A clean cut. The heart split open. Molten essence spilled out, sizzling on the board. He moved fast. He tossed the essence into the pan. He added the moon dew to cool the heat. The mixture hissed, turning a violent violet color. He wasn't just cooking. He was fighting. The mana in the ingredients pushed back. It tried to burn him. It tried to poison him. Theo gritted his teeth. He poured his own mana into the pan. He forced the ingredients to submit. "Obey," he whispered. He added the spices. The smell hit the room. It didn't smell like food. It smelled like old magic. It smelled like the world before the war, before the humans built their walls, before the demons were banished to the wastelands. Outside, a boom shook the shack. Dust fell from the ceiling into the garnish. Theo caught the dust with a spoon before it ruined the dish. Reflective speed. 10, 10. The door rattled again. Not from wind. Shouts, metal clashing. "Purge the area," a voice screamed from outside. "I smell dark energy." The orcs stood up. Panic. "Heroes," one of them grunted. The Silver Vanguard. The Silver Vanguard. An elite unit. Knight captains. They didn't arrest people, they executed them. If they found this place, everyone died. Theo died for harboring enemies. The demons died for existing. Belial, the demon king, didn't move. He sat at the bar, watching Theo. He was testing him. "Can you handle this, little chef? Or will you break?" Theo didn't look at the door. He looked at the pan. The sauce was reducing. It needed 30 more seconds. "Sit down," Theo commanded the orcs. "But I said sit down," Theo snapped. "The food is almost ready." He reached into a jar on the top shelf. A purple powder. Illusionary paprika. Effect: masks, mana signatures. Alters perception of scent. He dusted the room with it. He threw a handful into the fireplace. The smoke changed color, from black to white. The smell of brimstone vanished, replaced by the smell of chicken soup. Rustic, wholesome, grandma's chicken soup. Glamour magic, Theo thought. Culinary grade. The door smashed open. 3 knights in shining silver armor stormed in, swords drawn, capes fluttering. "Nobody move," the lead knight shouted. "We detected a massive spike of abyssal energy." The knight looked around. He saw Theo chopping vegetables. He saw a group of large, burly men in cloaks eating soup. The illusion made the orcs look like rugged mercenaries. He saw a silver-haired nobleman at the bar. The knight blinked. He sniffed the air. Chicken. Herbs. Bread. The knight lowered his sword slightly. "We tracked a Demon King's signature to these coordinates." Theo wiped his hands on his apron. He looked bored. "You tracked a burnt roast," Theo lied. Smoothly. "I had an accident with the oven earlier. Maybe your sensors are picking up the charcoal." The knight frowned. He looked at Belial. Belial didn't turn around. He just tapped his finger on the counter. The knight felt a chill. But the illusion held. To him, this was just a wealthy patron. "Check the back," the knight ordered his men. They stormed the kitchen. They found crates of potatoes, barrels of ale. They didn't see the jar of demon blood sauce behind the flour. Theo had labeled it spicy ketchup. "Clear, Captain," the subordinate reported. The captain looked confused. "But the reading?" "Are you going to buy something?" Theo asked, cutting him off. "We have a minimum cover charge. If not, you're blocking the light." The sheer audacity. A villager talking down to a vanguard captain. The captain glared. But he had no proof. The law was strict. You can't execute civilians without cause. "Watch yourself, chef," the captain spat. "The war is coming to this border. Pick a side." The knights turned and marched out. The door closed. The tension snapped. The orcs slumped in their chairs. The harpy let out a screech of relief. Theo exhaled. His knees felt weak. He had just bluffed a death squad. He turned back to the stove. The dish was ready. He plated it. A dark, glossy reduction over the seared magma heart. It pulsed with a faint red light. He slid the plate to Belial. "Dish 42, Theo said. "Heart of the lost age." Belial looked at the food. The illusionary magic didn't work on him. He saw the truth. He saw the forbidden ingredients. He saw the risk Theo had just taken. He picked up a fork. He took a bite. The Demon King froze. The flavors hit him. Heat. Not fire, but warmth. The taste of the deep earth. The spices. They tasted like the kingdom he had lost 1,000 years ago. Before the betrayal. Before the endless winter of the abyss. A single memory surfaced, sitting by a hearth, not as a king, but as a father. A time before he was a monster. Belial closed his eyes. The oppressive aura around him retracted. The killing intent vanished. For the first time, he looked tired. Just an old man carrying too much weight. "You," Belial whispered. "Where did you learn this recipe?" "I improvised," Theo said. He started cleaning the knife. "Cooking is just memory on a plate." The back door creaked. A shadow moved. Theo spun around. It was Gareth, the village drunk, the guy who supplied Theo with firewood. Gareth was shaking. He held a small bag of coins. Imperial coins. "I'm sorry, Theo," Gareth blubbered. "They paid me. They said they'd forgive my debts." Betrayal. Gareth had told the knights. That's why they came. The knights hadn't left. They were waiting outside. The inspection was a ruse to get Theo to lower his guard. "He's in there," Gareth screamed towards the front door. "He's feeding the Demon King. The illusion is fake." The front door exploded. This time, there was no talking. An arrow flew through the smoke, aimed straight for Theo's heart. Theo couldn't dodge. His stats were garbage. Agility. 4. He braced for impact. Clang. The arrow stopped. It hung in the air, inches from Theo's chest. A hand had caught it. Not Belial's hand, an orc hand. The orc berserker from Table 3 stood between Theo and the door. He snapped the arrow like a twig. "No," the orc growled. Another demon stood up. The harpy. She spread her wings, blocking the window. "He feeds us," a lizardman hissed, drawing a jagged blade. "He heals us," a shadow stalker whispered, emerging from the corner. The knights poured in. 10 of them. "Wretched monsters!" the captain screamed. "Slaughter them all!" But the monsters weren't fighting for the abyss today. They weren't fighting for hatred. They were fighting for their chef. The bistro turned into a brawl. Tables flipped. Magic flared. Theo stood in the eye of the storm. "My restaurant," he groaned. "My insurance premium is going to skyrocket." A hand touched his shoulder. Belial stood up. He wiped his mouth with a napkin. Elegant. "Excellent meal," Belial said. The Demon King snapped his fingers. Snap. The sound was louder than the battle. Gravity inverted. The knights froze. They floated into the air, paralyzed by overwhelming telekinetic force. Belial looked at them with boredom. "Leave," he commanded. He flicked his wrist. The 10 knights were launched out of the door, flying across the gray zone like ragdolls. They vanished into the horizon. Team Rocket style. Silence returned. Gareth, the traitor, cowered in the corner. Belial looked at Gareth. He raised a finger. "Don't," Theo said. Belial paused. "He betrayed you." "He's desperate," Theo said. "And he's my firewood supplier. Good help is hard to find." Theo walked over to Gareth. He looked down at the trembling man. "Get out," Theo said cold, "and don't come back until you have better lumber." "And an apology." Gareth scrambled away, sobbing. Theo turned to Belial. The Demon King was smiling. A real smile this time. "You are a strange human," Belial said. "You command loyalty from beasts. You show mercy to rats. And you cook like a god." Belial reached into his coat. He pulled out a token. A black iron medallion shaped like a fork crossed with a sword. "The abyss is hungry," Belial said. "We have resources, rare ingredients, things your human markets can only dream of. Dragon liver, phoenix eggs, kraken ink." Theo's eyes widened. The chef in him salivated. "I'm listening." "Become my personal supplier," Belial offered. "Feed my generals. Feed me. In exchange, you get protection, you get the ingredients, and you get to live. An alliance with the enemy of mankind. If Theo took this, there was no going back. He would be the Demon King's chef, a traitor to humanity forever. Theo looked at the ruined door. He looked at the system window. Quest complete, the King's Palate. Reward received, the Black Iron Pact. New title, the Devil's Sous Chef. Theo took the medallion. It was cold. I have one condition, Theo said. Belial raised an eyebrow. You dare negotiate? If you want to eat here, Theo pointed to the shattered entrance. You pay for the repairs, and you wait in line like everyone else. No cutting. The demons in the room held their breath. Belial stared at Theo. Then he laughed, a booming, genuine laugh that shook the dust from the rafters. Deal, the Demon King said. He walked to the door. He stopped and looked back. See you next Tuesday, chef. I expect dessert. Theo slumped against the counter as the king left. The adrenaline crashed. His hands shook. He looked at the orcs who were busy putting the tables back upright. Hey, Theo called out. The orcs looked at him. Anyone want seconds? A roar of approval filled the shack. Theo grinned, a wry, tired grin. He picked up his knife. The war was outside. But in here? In here, it was dinner time. The mist rolling off the gray zone cliffs didn't smell like death anymore. It smelled like browned butter and sage. The transformation was impossible. A month ago, this place was a shack held together by rusty nails and prayer. Now it was a pilgrimage site. The Bistro of the Damned. That wasn't the official name. Theo called it the Neutral Plate. But the customers, mostly 7-foot-tall monstrosities with horns and a taste for human flesh, preferred the edgier title. Theo stood at the pass. His white chef's coat was spotless, a magical repel-stain enchantment. Cost him 500 gold. Worth every copper. He looked at the queue. It stretched down the cliff path. A heavily armored Dullahan was arguing with a frantic nightmare mare about cutting in line. I don't care if you're a steed of the apocalypse, the Dullahan grumbled, holding his own severed head under his arm. Reservation times are absolute. Theo checked his system interface. It had changed. It wasn't the basic villager blue anymore. It was a rich velvet gold. Class: Abyssal Gourmet, level 15. Skill: Unlocked, Aromatic Authority, passive. Description: Your dishes don't just fill bellies. They overwrite intentions. You can suppress aggression through scent profiles. Mind control, Theo thought. He chopped a bundle of shadow scallions. The system gave me flavor-based mind control, because apparently being a chef wasn't stressful enough. Now I'm a culinary hypnotist. He focused on the pot in front of him. This was a custom order for Duke Valak, a high demon of the 7th Circle. Braised void leviathan tentacle in a red wine and soul shard reduction. The ingredients were volatile. The tentacle was still twitching. It fought the heat. It wanted to escape the pan. Theo slapped it with the flat of his knife. Thwack. Stay, he ordered. His mana flowed into the utensil. The tentacle went limp. The aroma wafted out. Deep, earthy, intoxicating. In the dining room, the noise level dropped. The arguing Dullahan stopped. The nightmare mare lowered its flaming mane. Even the rowdy goblin waiters froze. The scent hit their brains like a serotonin hammer. It wasn't just food, it was a command. Relax. Be happy. Don't kill anyone. Theo watched the aggression drain out of the room. Useful, he muttered. Scary, but useful. The front door opened. The bell chimed. But the rhythm was wrong. It wasn't the hesitant shuffle of a hungry monster. It was the confident stride of entitlement. Theo didn't look up. We're full. Put your name on the list. Wait time is 2 hours. We don't wait for traitor scum. The voice was young, arrogant, human. Theo sighed. He set down his knife. 3 figures stood in the doorway. Heroes. Not the elite silver vanguard this time. These were rank climbers, the kind of adventurers who live-streamed their raids on crystal orbs for clout. The leader wore armor that cost more than a small kingdom. He had perfect hair, a cape that defied gravity. "I am Kalen of the Shining Fist," the boy announced. He pointed a sword at Theo. "And we are here to purge this den of evil." The demons in the room growled. Chairs scraped against the floor. Theo raised a hand. The aromatic authority pulsed. The demons sat back down. They looked at Theo. They were waiting for orders. "No fighting in the dining room," Theo said. His voice was flat. "I just polished the floors," Kalen sneered. "You think you can order us around? You're a human feeding monsters. You're worse than them. You're a collaborator." Collaborator. Traitor. The word stung. Theo felt a twinge in his chest. He remembered his old life. He was a chef. He fed people. He didn't ask for their criminal records. He didn't ask if they were good people. He just fed them. Why was this world different? Why did he have to choose a side? "I'm a business owner," Theo said, "and you're trespassing." Kalen lunged. He was fast. A level 40 speedster. He vaulted over the counter, his sword aimed for Theo's throat. "Die, turncoat!" Theo didn't have combat skills. He didn't have evasion, but he had the kitchen. This was his domain. Theo grabbed the nearest pot. Item: pot of boiling hell broth. Temperature 400 degrees. Effect: melts armor. Theo sidestepped, not with agility but with the muscle memory of a line cook dodging a hot pan. He swung the pot. A wave of scalding, spicy, acidic broth caught Kalen in the chest. The hero screamed. It wasn't a noble scream. It was a high-pitched shriek. The broth hit the magic armor. It hissed. The runes on the breastplate flickered and died. The spices, ghost peppers from the netherworld, seeped into the cracks. "My eyes," Kalen flailed. "It burns. Why does it taste like garlic and pain?" The other two heroes, a ranger and a cleric, panicked. "He's using dark magic," the cleric yelled. "It's soup," Theo shouted back. "It's just soup, you idiots." The ranger fired an arrow. Theo grabbed a tray, a silver serving platter reinforced with mana. Clang. The arrow bounced off. Theo grabbed a handful of flour. He tossed it into the air. Dust explosion, he thought. Classic. He snapped his fingers. A tiny spark of mana. Whoosh. A fireball erupted in the confined space behind the counter. It blasted the heroes back. They tumbled over tables, knocking into a very unhappy minotaur. The minotaur looked at his spilled drink, then at the heroes. "Uh-oh," the ranger squeaked. Theo slammed his hand on the counter. "Out!" The shout carried the weight of a dragon roar. The heroes scrambled. They slipped on the broth. They crawled over each other. They fled out the door, leaving their dignity and one very nice sword behind. The restaurant fell silent. Then applause, slow at first, then thunderous. The demons cheered. They banged their tankards on the tables. "Hail the chef!" a goblin shouted. Theo didn't smile. He looked at the mess. Broth on the floor, scorch marks on the wall. "Great," he internalized. "Now I'm definitely on the bounty board. Theo the Mad Chef. Reward, dead or alive. Preferably dead." He felt the weight of it. The isolation. He was building a sanctuary, but he was burning his bridge back to humanity. Every meal he served to a demon was a nail in the coffin of his human identity. He needed help. He couldn't do this alone. The back door opened. "You know," a voice said, "your flour-to-spark ratio was off. You could have blown the roof off." Theo spun around, knife ready. A man stood there. He was dusty. He wore a tool belt that looked suspiciously like modern construction gear, but crafted from dragon leather. He had messy brown hair and tired eyes. He looked familiar. Not from this world. From before. Theo squinted. "Ren?" The man grinned. "Chef, long time no see. Last time I saw you, you were yelling at me for undercooking the risotto." "Ren." The sous chef from Tokyo. The guy who died in a construction accident 2 months before Theo's heart attack. You got isekai'd too? Theo lowered the knife. Yep, Ren walked in. He tapped the wall. Reincarnated as a dungeon architect. I build labyrinths, traps, secret rooms. It's a living. Ren looked around the shack. He frowned. This place is a structural nightmare, Theo. Load-bearing walls made of rotwood? No ventilation? And your layout flow is garbage. Theo felt a lump in his throat. A human. A friend. Someone who knew what a Michelin star was. Can you fix it? Theo asked. Ren cracked his knuckles. Mana flared around him. Geometric shapes glowed in the air. Blueprints of light. Fix it? Buddy, I'm going to upgrade it. We're going from roadside shack to fortress of gastronomy. Give me 10 minutes and a pile of mana stones. Skill activated. Instant construction. Rank A. The shack groaned. The walls expanded. Wood shifted into obsidian stone. The roof vaulted upwards, creating a cathedral ceiling. Windows widened and turned into stained glass depicting scenes of vegetables. Ren worked fast. He didn't build with hammers. He built with will. A second floor materialized. A VIP balcony. The kitchen expanded. 6 burners became 20. The rusty stove transformed into a mithril forged range. The demons watched in awe. They had seen magic destroy. They had never seen magic build like this. Done. Ren dusted off his hands. Theo looked around. It was beautiful. It was functional. It was a restaurant worthy of his skills. Welcome to the team, Theo said. I'm not working for free, Ren smirked. I want 20% of the profits, and free lunch. 10%, Theo countered. And you do the dishes on Fridays. Deal. The expansion came just in time, because the clientele was upgrading too. The door opened again. This time the temperature dropped to absolute 0. Frost crawled across the floor. An ice demon entered. Tall. Sharp features, wearing armor made of permafrost. Simultaneously, the temperature spiked. Heat waves distorted the air. A fire demon entered. Bulkier. Molten skin. Smoke trailing from his nostrils. They stopped. They looked at each other. Rivals. Generals from opposing factions of the abyss. The ice general sneered. I smell sulfur. A bottom feeder is present. The fire general snarled. I smell a frozen corpse. Go melt in a puddle. Sparks flew. Ice shards formed in the air. The other customers scrambled under the tables. This wasn't a bar brawl. This was a potential natural disaster. If they fought, the restaurant and half the cliff would be vaporized. Theo stepped out of the kitchen. He slammed a heavy cleaver into the wooden pass. Thud. If you two destroy my new renovation, Theo said, his voice amplified by the room's acoustics, I will ban you for life. And I will tell everyone that you eat your steak well done. The threat hung in the air. To a foodie, that was a slur. He started it, the fire general grumbled. He exists, the ice general retorted. I don't care. Theo walked out to the floor. He stood between the 2 titans. He looked like a child between 2 skyscrapers. You're hungry. That's why you're here. So settle it. A duel? The ice general asked. A culinary duel, Theo corrected. I will cook 1 dish. A dish of perfect balance. If you can eat it without your conflicting elements destroying the flavor, you stay. If you can't, you leave. Theo returned to the kitchen. He needed something that harmonized extremes. Recipe, the eclipse dumpling. Ingredients, frost lotus root, magma eel, neutralizing rice flour. He worked with a rhythm, fire and ice, yin and yang. Ren watched from the side, impressed. You've gotten better. I've had to, Theo muttered. He wrapped the fillings. He steamed them. The steam wasn't white. It was gray. Perfect neutrality. He placed the basket between the 2 generals. Eat. They hesitated. Then they reached in. The moment the dumplings hit their tongues, their auras flared. Fire met ice. Usually this meant an explosion, but the neutralizing rice flour acted as a mediator. It absorbed the conflict. It turned the clash into flavor. The spice of the magma eel warmed the cold blood of the ice demon. The crisp coolness of the frost lotus soothed the burning gut of the fire demon. They gasped. The hostility vanished, replaced by pure, unadulterated bliss. It balances, the fire general whispered. It completes, the ice general agreed. They looked at each other. The hatred was gone. They were just two beings sharing a meal. Another round, they shouted in unison. Theo leaned against the counter. He wiped sweat from his brow. Crisis averted. The fame of the bistro was skyrocketing. He was brokering peace treaties with appetizers. But fame attracts attention. The wrong kind of attention. The sky outside the stained glass windows went black. Not night. Void. The stars vanished. The moon was swallowed. A pressure descended on the restaurant that made the previous generals feel like insects. The customers stopped eating. They fell to their knees. Heads to the floor. Absolute submission. Ren gripped a pillar. Theo, what is that? I don't know, Theo lied. He knew. The system was screaming at him. Warning, entity detected. Level. Class, Supreme Overlord. The door didn't open. It dissolved. A figure stood there. He wasn't large. He was average height. He wore a simple suit that looked strangely modern, yet woven from shadows. His face was a blur of shifting darkness, except for two burning violet eyes. Lord Malifar, the ruler of the southern abyss, the entity that had devoured entire pantheons of lesser gods. He stepped inside. The floorboards didn't creak. Reality seemed to bend away from him, terrified to touch his boots. He walked straight to the counter. He looked at Theo. Theo couldn't breathe. The killing intent was suffocating. It felt like drowning in cold oil. Internal monologue screamed, "Don't faint, don't vomit, stand your ground." Theo straightened his back. He met the violet gaze. "Table for one?" Theo rasped. Malifar leaned in. His voice wasn't a sound. It was a vibration in Theo's skull. "Your food," the Overlord spoke. "It has stirred things. Rumors. My generals are getting soft. They speak of peace. They speak of flavor." Malifar placed a hand on the counter. The mithril turned to dust where he touched it. "You are a disruption, little human." Ren stepped forward, reaching for a tool. Theo put a hand out to stop him. "Don't. You'll die." "I'm just a cook," Theo said. "No," Malifar corrected. "You are a catalyst." The violet eyes narrowed. "I have a proposal. You will come with me to the Obsidian Citadel. You will cook exclusively for me. No more peasants, no more heroes. You will become the private chef of the apocalypse." "And if I refuse?" Theo asked. Malifar smiled. The darkness shifted, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. "Then I will devour this restaurant, with you, your friend, and every patron inside it, as an appetizer." The ultimatum hung in the void. Exclusive service to a monster, or death. Theo looked at Ren. He looked at the trembling demons on the floor. He looked at his kitchen. He had just expanded. He had just leveled up. He wasn't ready to give up his freedom, but he couldn't fight an overlord. Not yet. He needed a third option. He needed to cook the meal of his life. Theo picked up his knife. He pointed it at the overlord. "I don't do exclusive contracts," Theo said, his voice trembling but loud. "But I do cater private events." He slammed a menu on the counter. "If you want my food, you play by my rules. Sit down, shut up, and wait for the special." Malifar paused. The void swirled violently. Then the overlord chuckled. "Bold," Malifar said. "Foolish, but bold." He sat on a stool. The wood groaned but held. You have 1 hour, the Overlord whispered. Impress me, or die. Theo turned to the kitchen. His hands were shaking so hard he almost dropped the knife. Ren, Theo hissed. Yeah? Ren was pale as a ghost. Get the dragon liver, and the fermenting void sauce. You're going to cook a Class S dish? You don't have the mana for that. I know. Theo ignited the burner. The blue flame reflected in his determined eyes. But if I'm going out flambé. The camera pans out from the glowing restaurant perched on the edge of the abyss, surrounded by infinite darkness with the small silhouette of a chef standing against a god. The ground shook, not a tremor, a convulsion. The coffee in Theo's mug rippled, creating perfect concentric circles before splashing onto the polished obsidian counter. Outside the reinforced stained glass windows, the horizon was glowing. Not with the purple hue of the abyss, but with a blinding, sanctimonious white light. It was the color of justice. It was the color of a crusade. Theo sighed. He put the mug down. Can I have one morning? He asked the empty air. Just one morning where I don't have to navigate a geopolitical crisis before I've had my caffeine? He walked to the window. Below the cliff, the gray zone was swarming. Banners waved in the wind. Silver falcons, golden lions, sunbursts. The united crests of the human alliance. It wasn't a party. It wasn't a raid group. It was an army. Catapults were being loaded with blessed stones. Mages were chanting in unison, weaving a spell that looked large enough to crack the continent. System alert, siege detected. Enemy force, the Grand Alliance of Light. Objective, purge the demon stronghold. Threat level, calamity. Demon stronghold, Theo muttered. It's a gastropub. Check the Yelp reviews, you savages. The door behind him opened. Ren walked in. The architect looked pale. He was wiping grease from his hands with a rag. The mana barriers are holding, Ren said. But barely. They brought the sane Tess. Her dispel magic is chewing through my structural enchantments like acid through wet paper. Theo tied his apron. He tightened the knot. Let them come, Theo said. I just prepped the lunch rush. I hate food waste. Boom. The first spell hit. The entire building groaned. Dust fell from the rafters. Down in the dining hall, panic erupted. It was full. Warlords, counts of hell, high-ranking monsters who had traveled weeks just to taste Theo's legendary Voidstalker stew. Now they were trapped. We are under attack, a minotaur screamed, overturning a table. The humans have broken the treaty, a succubus hissed, her claws extending. Theo vaulted over the railing of the VIP balcony. He landed in the center of the chaos, skill activated, voice of the chef. Quiet. The shout carried mana. It slammed into the room, suppressing the panic. You are guests in my house, Theo announced. And in my house, nobody skips the bill. If you want to leave, you fight your way out. But if you want to win, you eat. The front wall exploded. Debris flew inward. Sunlight, harsh, burning sunlight, flooded the dim, ambient dining room. Through the breach stepped the heroes. Not the rank climbers from before. These were the real deal. The Grand Marshal. A man in armor so thick he looked like a walking tank. The High Inquisitor. A woman with eyes wrapped in cloth, holding a staff that radiated pure thermal energy. Behind them, rows of archers with arrows nocked. Abominations! The High Inquisitor shrieked. Her voice grated on Theo's ears. You feast while the world bleeds, and you, human, you feed them, you nurture the cancer. Theo stood between the army of light and the army of darkness. He held a ladle. I'm serving brunch, Theo said dryly. The special is Eggs Benedict with a side of shut up. The Inquisitor pointed her staff. Burn it all. A torrent of holy fire erupted. It surged toward the demons. Theo didn't flinch. He didn't dodge. He threw the contents of his ladle. A thick, golden liquid intercepted the fire. Sauce. Glaze of the fire. Drake. Properties: 100% fire absorption. Flavor profile: spicy, sweet. The holy fire hit the sauce. It didn't burn. It caramelized. The flames were absorbed, turning into a delicious-smelling vapor that filled the room. "What?" the Inquisitor faltered. "Order up," Theo shouted. He turned to the demons behind him. Belial was there. The Demon King looked bored, but his eyes were sharp. "You want us to fight for you, Chef?" Belial asked. "No," Theo said. He grabbed a tray of appetizers he had prepared earlier. Glowing red meatballs pulsating with energy. "I want you to fight for your lunch." He tossed the tray. Belial caught a meatball. He popped it into his mouth. The Demon King chewed. Swallowed. System effect applied, the Titan's Gorge. Buff, strength, + 300%. Buff, pain resistance, 100%. Duration, 15 minutes. Belial's muscles didn't just swell, they compacted. His aura turned from a smoky gray to a blinding violet solid. He roared. The sound shattered the remaining windows. He charged. The battle for the bistro had begun. It was chaos. Absolute, unmitigated chaos. Demons, empowered by Theo's appetizers, clashed with the holy knights. Theo was in the center of the storm. He wasn't fighting with a sword. He was fighting with a wok. He moved like a dancer. A knight lunged at him. Theo sidestepped, throwing a handful of slippery slime powder on the floor. The knight lost traction. He face-planted into a table corner. "Wet floor," Theo commented. Liability suit waiting to happen. He grabbed a pot of boiling oil. He saw a formation of archers taking aim at the Harpy general. Theo tossed the oil into the air. He cast a quick wind spell. The oil misted. Then he snapped his fingers. Ignite. A localized fuel-air explosion rocked the entrance. The archers were blown back, covered in crispy batter. Tempura strike, Theo thought, needs more salt. But despite the buffs, the numbers were against them. There were thousands of humans outside. Theo retreated to the kitchen. He needed the big guns, the main course. Ren was there. He was standing by the safe where Theo kept his recipe book. "Ren!" Theo shouted. "We need to seal the breach. Use the emergency shutters." Ren didn't move. He stood with his back to Theo. He was holding the book. The Grimoire of Gastronomy. The book Theo had written himself, cataloging every mana-infused recipe he had invented. "Ren?" Ren turned around. He wasn't smiling. He looked sad, or maybe it was pity. "I can't do that, Theo." Ren held up a crystal, a teleportation crystal. "The Alliance offered me a duchy," Ren said. "A real title, land, money, not just a percentage of a restaurant on a cliff." Theo froze. The sounds of battle faded into a dull roar. "You're selling me out?" "I'm selling the recipes," Ren corrected. "You think you can stay neutral forever?" "You can't. You have the power to turn armies into gods. Whoever controls the chef controls the world." Ren activated the crystal. "I'm sorry, buddy, but this is just business." "Ren, wait!" Space warped. Ren vanished, taking the book, taking the secrets. Theo stood alone in the kitchen. Betrayal. It tasted like ash. It tasted worse than the burnt risotto that killed him in his last life. Flashback. Tokyo, 2024. It was Christmas Eve. The restaurant was closed. The staff had gone home to their families. Theo sat alone in the dark kitchen. He had a plate of leftovers. Cold turkey. He had awards on the wall. Chef of the Year. Golden spoon. But he had no one to share the meal with. He worked 90 hours a week. He fired anyone who wasn't perfect. He drove people away because he thought perfection was the only thing that mattered. He died alone on the floor. He swore, when he woke up in this hellhole, that it would be different. He built this place not to be a king, but to be a host. To have a table where people sat together. And now? Now his only friend had stabbed him in the back for a piece of real estate. No, Theo whispered. He grabbed a knife. Not again. He didn't need the book. He wrote the damn book. The recipes weren't on the paper. They were in his hands. They were in his soul. He looked at the pantry. Rare ingredients. Essence of the phoenix. Tear of a dying god. Roots of the world tree. He grabbed them all. Outside, the tide was turning. Belial was strong, but he was overwhelmed. The Grand Marshal had a holy sword that cut through demonic skin like butter. A scream pierced the air. Theo looked through the pass. It was Ignis, the fire general, the one who had shared the dumpling with the ice general. The Grand Marshal's sword was buried in Ignis's chest. The flame in the demon's eyes flickered, died. The massive body hit the floor. "General!" the demon screamed. Morale collapsed. The heroes cheered. "The beast is dead," the marshal shouted. Theo walked out of the kitchen. He wasn't walking. He was marching. He carried a covered silver platter. The air around him distorted. The heat coming off the dish was warping gravity. He walked straight into the middle of the battlefield. "Get out of the way," Theo said. Heroes tried to stop him. Theo didn't even look at them. The aroma coming from the dish acted as a physical barrier. It pushed them back. It was too rich, too potent. It made their knees weak. Theo reached the fallen general. Ignis was gray, cold, ash crumbling from his wounds, dead, by all medical standards. "You don't get to clock out yet," Theo said. "You didn't pay your tab." He lifted the lid. A golden light exploded upward. It blinded the archers on the ridge. The smell of resurrection. Saffron, honey, and life itself. Dish, the Phoenix Rebirth Curry. Grade, divine. Effect, revokes death, conditional. Theo pried the demon's jaw open. He poured the broth in. Silence. The Grand Marshal laughed. "He's feeding a corpse. The madness has taken him." The laugh died in his throat. Ignis's chest glowed. The wound knitted together. Smoke poured from his nose. The gray skin turned molten red again. Thump. Thump. The heartbeat was so loud it shook the floorboards. Ignis's eyes snapped open. They weren't just fire anymore. They were blue fire, hotter, stronger. "How?" The High Inquisitor dropped her staff. That is necromancy. It's nutrition." Theo stood up. He looked at his hands. They were glowing. He felt it. The power. He had just cheated death. He looked at the heroes. He looked at the demons. He held the power of life and death in a soup spoon. He could rule this world. He could raise an army of unkillable soldiers. He could be the God Emperor that Ren wanted him to be. The temptation was there. A dark, sweet whisper in the back of his mind. Destroy them. Make them bow. Theo closed his eyes. He remembered the cold turkey. He remembered the empty kitchen. "No," he thought. "I'm just a cook." He looked at the Grand Marshal. "Get your men out of my restaurant," Theo said. His voice wasn't loud, but it silenced the battlefield. "You harbor monsters," the Marshal stammered, fear creeping into his eyes. "You revive the dead." "I serve customers," Theo corrected. "And right now, you're ruining the ambiance." Theo snapped his fingers. The illusionary magic he had installed with Ren, the one part Ren hadn't sabotaged, activated. The ceiling dissolved. The sky above wasn't the sky. It was a menu, a giant holographic menu floating in the heavens. Today's special, peace offering platter. Price, a ceasefire. "You have two choices," Theo announced. "Choice A. I keep feeding these demons until they are strong enough to juggle your castles. Choice B. We call a timeout. You leave, I stay neutral. And I promise I won't sell my takeout to the front lines." The Marshal looked at Ignis, who was now standing, crackling with blue flame, ready to incinerate the zip code. He looked at Belial, who was picking his teeth with a hero's dagger. He looked at Theo, the man who had just reversed death with curry. The risk was too high. If they pushed now, they would die. Retreat, the marshal spat. But this isn't over, chef. You have made an enemy of heaven. Get in line. Theo turned his back. Hell hates me too. The humans withdrew, slowly, reluctantly. The demons cheered. They tried to lift Theo on their shoulders. Put me down, Theo grumbled. You smell like burnt armor. He walked back to the kitchen. He saw the empty safe where the book used to be. Ren was gone. The secret was out. The war wasn't over. It had just escalated. Now every kingdom, every empire, every dark lord knew what he could do. He wasn't just a curiosity anymore. He was a strategic asset, a nuclear weapon that made soufflés. Ignis walked into the kitchen. The massive demon bowed low. I owe you my life, the general rumbled. You owe me 50 gold, Theo said, wiping the counter. Ingredients were expensive. Ignis chuckled. He placed a heavy bag of coins on the table. The overlords will hear of this, Ignis said seriously. You cannot stay neutral. Theo, the middle of the road is where you get run over. Theo picked up his knife. He looked at his reflection in the blade. His eyes looked older, harder. Let them try, Theo said. He looked at the camera. A Gen Z smirk tugged at the corner of his mouth. I still have the lunch rush to prep, and if anyone else tries to steal my recipes, they're going into the grinder. The screen fades to black as Theo starts chopping onions, tears running down his face, not from the onions, but from the lingering sting of a lost friend. The cliffs of the gray zone were gone. They had been replaced by marble. 6 months had passed since the siege. The neutral plate was no longer a shack. It was a citadel, a sprawling, multi-tiered fortress of gastronomy that defied the laws of physics and zoning regulations. It suspended over the abyss on gravity-defying pillars of obsidian. The neon sign above the entrance buzzed with mana instead of electricity. Theo's. Simple. Iconic. Terrifying. Theo adjusted his collar. He wore a suit now, a chef's white coat tailored like a tuxedo. He stood on the highest balcony. He looked down at the courtyard. It was the impossible dream. On the left sat the entire high command of the Abyssal Legions, Belial, Ignis, and the newly recruited Frost Queen, crying over a bowl of spicy noodles. On the right sat the Grand Alliance. Kings. Queens. The High Inquisitor. They looked uncomfortable. They kept their hands near their sword hilts. But they were there. Peace, Theo muttered. He lit a cigarette. It wasn't tobacco. It was dried calming herbs. Peace is just a dinner party where nobody poisons the wine. System notification. Event, the Grand Summit. Objective, prevent World War III. Current stress level, 99%. Great, Theo exhaled smoke. No pressure. Just the fate of the continent resting on my appetizer selection. The doors to the grand hall opened. The atmosphere was heavy enough to crush a diamond. Thousands of eyes turned to the head table. Theo walked in. He didn't walk like a servant. He walked like the emperor of this domain. The sound of cutlery scraping against plates ceased. He reached the center podium. He tapped the microphone. Tap. Tap. Welcome, Theo's voice echoed. Rule number 1, no politics at the table. Rule number 2, if you waste the wagyu, I will personally banish you to the Shadow Realm. A murmur went through the crowd. The Grand Marshal, Lord Valerius, stood up. He was the leader of the Human Alliance, the hero of heroes. He wore armor made of pure white dragon scales. His eyes were cold, too cold. This is a farce, Valerius spat. We sit here with monsters, with butchers. He pointed a gauntleted finger at Belial. That beast burned the western reach. Belial didn't look up from his wine. And you slaughtered the goblin nurseries in the east. We all have blood on our bibs, Valerius. Sit down. The soup is getting cold. Valerius drew his sword. The sound was like a gunshot. I will not break bread with demons, Valerius roared. I came here to end this. The human knight stood up, weapons drawn. The demon lord stood up, claws extended. The truce was shattering. It had lasted exactly 5 minutes. Theo didn't move. He didn't blink. He snapped his fingers. Serve the first course. Ren, wearing a tuxedo made of tactical gear, kicked open the kitchen doors. An army of waiters, goblins in bow ties, swarmed the room. They slammed bowls down in front of every guest, a clear blue liquid. It swirled with a hypnotic light. Dish, consommé of absolute zero. Grade, artifact. Effect, nullifies aggression, forces a cool-down state on the nervous system. Eat, Theo commanded. Valerius raised his sword to strike the nearest waiter. The aroma hit him. It wasn't a smell, it was a memory of winter, of stillness. His hand trembled. The sword felt heavy, impossible to lift. The artifact nature of the dish began to rewrite the reality of the room. The mana in the air froze. Violence became physically exhausting. One by one, the knights sat down, confused, tired. One by one, the demons retracted their claws. Valerius fought it. Veins bulged in his neck. Witchcraft, he hissed. Gastronomy, Theo corrected. Now sit. Theo watched the room. This was his power. He wasn't the strongest. He wasn't the fastest, but he controlled the biological inputs of every living thing in this room. Internal monologue drifted. I remember the hunger. In Tokyo. The hunger wasn't for food. It was for meaning. Everyone running. Everyone fighting. For what? To die of a heart attack at 40? He looked at the humans and demons eating the soup. Their faces softened. The hatred in their eyes was replaced by confusion. Then by satisfaction. I didn't reincarnate to be a hero, Theo thought. I reincarnated to fix the menu. But Valerius didn't sit. The Grand Marshal began to laugh. It was a wet, gurgling sound. You think you can stop us with soup? Valerius convulsed. His white armor began to crack. Black sludge seeped out of the fissures. The master does not eat. The master devours. Theo narrowed his eyes. Analysis eye activated. Target, Lord Valerius. Status, deceased. Possessed by the Void Parasite, Ancient Calamity class. Well, Theo grabbed a cleaver from under the podium. That's not on the guest list. Valerius exploded. Not a bomb. A biological eruption. Tentacles of shadow lashed out. They smashed the table. They impaled a knight and a demon alike. The Grand Marshal was gone. Standing in his place was a towering monstrosity of shifting flesh and teeth. The puppet master behind the war. The reason the conflict never ended. I am famine, the entity roared. I am the endless hunger. Chaos. The cool-down effect of the soup vanished, shattered by the overwhelming killing intent of the void. It's a trap, the High Inquisitor screamed. The chef lured us here to feed us to this thing. Shut up, Theo shouted. He vaulted over the table. Listen to me. Theo's voice amplified by mana. Valerius has been dead for years. That thing has been playing you. It feeds on war. It feeds on your hatred. The void monster lashed out at Theo. A massive claw descended. Clang. Belial caught the claw. The Demon King's muscles tore, purple blood spraying. Chef, Belial grunted, buckling under the weight. The main course. Is it ready? 5 minutes, Theo yelled. We don't have 5 minutes. Kalen, the young hero, jumped in. He parried a tentacle with his glowing sword. He looked at Belial, then at Theo. Orders? Kalen asked. He was asking the Demon King. Belial grinned, blood staining his teeth. Don't die, kid. History was made in that second. A hero and a Demon King stood back to back. All forces, Kalen screamed. Focus fire on the abomination. Legions of the Abyss, Belial roared. Protect the kitchen. Let the chef cook. The room erupted into total war. But this time, everyone was on the same side. Paladins cast shields over orcs. Warlocks fired shadow bolts to cover retreating archers. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. It was the peace Theo had wanted, forged in the fires of survival. Theo sprinted to the kitchen. Ren was already there. He was reinforcing the walls with mana steel. The structure is failing, Theo. The void energy is eating the foundation. Hold it together, Ren. Theo ran to the main stove. He had one shot. The void parasite fed on mana. It fed on negative emotion. Normal attacks wouldn't kill it. They would just make it stronger. He needed to feed it something it couldn't digest. He needed to feed it purity. He grabbed the final ingredient. The heart of the starfruit. Essence of the world tree. Tears of a forgiven saint. He threw them into the pressure cooker. Come on. Theo poured his own soul into the mix. His mana bar drained. 50%, 20%, 5%. His vision blurred. He was using his life force as fuel. If I die here, Theo thought, stirring frantically, at least I won't have to pay taxes next year. The kitchen wall collapsed. The void monster's face, a gaping maw of rot, pushed through. It smelled the purity. It shrieked, a sound that shattered glass. Give me! It wanted to consume the source. Theo grabbed the pot. It was glowing white hot. It burned his hands. The flesh on his palms sizzled. He didn't drop it. He walked toward the monster. You hungry? Theo smiled. Blood ran down his nose. Here, it's on the house. He didn't serve it. He threw the entire pot into the monster's open mouth. Skill activated, the Last Supper. Effect: absolute purification. Overloads target with positive mana. The monster swallowed. Silence. The fighting in the hall stopped. The void monster froze. Beams of white light shot out of its eyes, then its skin. 2. Full. The entity gasped. It bloated. It shone like a dying star. Burp, Theo whispered. Boom. The explosion wasn't fire. It was flower petals. It was glitter. It was the physical manifestation of delicious. The shockwave knocked everyone flat. The monster disintegrated into golden dust. The corruption that had plagued the Grand Marshal, the war, the hate, it all evaporated. Theo fell backward. The floor caught him. He stared up at the hole in the roof. The sky was blue, a real, painfully bright blue. He couldn't move his arms. His mana was 0. His HP was 1. Check, please, he wheezed. Faces appeared above him. Belial, Kalen, Ren, the High Inquisitor. They looked battered, bruised, but they were alive. Is he dead? Kalen asked, voice trembling. No, Belial sniffed. He smells like caramelized onions. He's alive. Theo groaned. He forced his eyes open. The room was a wreck. His beautiful restaurant was half destroyed. But the tables were being set upright. A paladin was helping a goblin up. A demon was sharing a flask with a mage. The shared trauma, the shared victory, and most importantly, the lingering buff of the meal. They weren't enemies anymore. They were survivors. The High Inquisitor stepped forward. She looked down at Theo. She looked at the golden dust where the ancient evil used to be. She knelt. It was a stiff, awkward motion, but she knelt. We misjudged, she said quietly. You are not a traitor to humanity. I'm a chef, Theo rasped. I told you. The aftermath was a blur of treaties and toasts. They didn't sign the peace accord with ink. They signed it with wine. The Treaty of the Empty Plate. Theo sat in a wheelchair, temporary, Ren insisted, watching the sunset. The restaurant was buzzing. Not with war, but with reconstruction. Humans and demons working side by side to fix the roof. Ren was shouting orders at a mixed crew of dwarves and dark elves. That arch needs to be load-bearing. Use the dragon bone. Belial leaned against the balcony rail. He held 2 glasses. He handed one to Theo. You did it, Belial said. You actually changed the world with a pot of soup. I didn't change it. Theo took the glass. I just reminded everyone that they have stomachs. What now? Belial asked. The war is over. The big bad is dead. You going to retire? Open a bakery? Theo looked at the horizon. The system window popped up. Main quest completed. The Peacemaker. New map unlocked. The Celestial Realms. New ingredient. Detected. Angel wings. Godfish. New difficulty. Mythic. Theo smirked. It was the same wry, tired smile from the first day in the shack. Retire? Theo laughed. Are you kidding? We just unlocked a new market. He pointed at the sky. I hear the gods have terrible food. Bland. Ambrosia is overrated. Belial stared at him. Then he burst out laughing. You intend to open a franchise in heaven? Why not? Theo toasted the air. Everyone needs to eat, even the gods. He looked at the camera. The frame froze on his face. The determined, slightly unhinged look of a man who would challenge the creators of the universe if they gave him a bad review. Ren, Theo shouted back into the ruin. Pack the knives. We're going on a business trip.